At the Easter Vigil, I said that the resurrection is not just something that happened 2,000 years ago or something we hope to experience when we die, but it's a power that's at work in our lives, a power that's meant to change our lives. And one of the ways that the resurrection has a power to change our lives is through healing. We see this happen profoundly in today's gospel. We hear that the disciples were in a house that was locked for fear of the Jews. What Jews are they afraid of, you might ask? Well, the Jewish authorities, we know that they had arrested Jesus, and they had put him to death, and so the disciples thought maybe they're after us next, so that's a legitimate fear. They're also afraid of possibly another Jew coming back. They heard rumors that Jesus has risen from the dead, and you could just imagine this group afraid of what Jesus might say to them if he was to appear, to come back. Would they experience the divine, anger or wrath of God if he appeared in their midst? They must have been so afraid of anyone entering into that house. But what do we see? We see Jesus all of a sudden appear in their midst. The resurrected Christ has no barrier. He doesn't have to knock on the door. He's there in their midst. And so the disciples, they must have been just blown away at the fact that Jesus showed them the wounds on his hands and side, not as a sign of shame to shame them or to get payback, to show them, look at what you did. No, not in any way. He used it as a source of vulnerability. He used it as a source of connection to say, although this has taken place in my life, I've experienced healing, and I've come to bring healing in your life as well. And how does Jesus do this? How does Jesus bring healing in the life of the apostles? He gives them the power to forgive sins. Jesus knew the guilt that they felt from their past betrayal of their friend. And so he gave the apostles the power to forgive sins. You could just imagine what that would have been like Peter confessing, say, to John. Peter saying, I betrayed Jesus 3 times. And John kind of saying, and there's some more, He said, oh yeah, I cut off the ear of one of the guards, oh yeah, I forgot about that, and on. But what reconciliation and peace must have been brought together in the lives of the apostles in that experience of reconciliation, of receiving the peace of Christ by confessing their sins and hearing the words of absolution. That must have been life-changing for them. So they experienced healing from these past traumatic events. So as I said, the power of the resurrection is something that can bring healing to our lives. All of us have these past events, just like the apostles, in which we've messed up, and the resurrection power can bring healing to those events, can bring the peace that our hearts desire when we feel the guilt and shame of messing up. So I've experienced this in my own life as well. When we went to the seminary, one of the first tasks that we had to do was a thing called an emotional inventory. What you do is you actually write down on a piece of paper every event of your past that has negative emotional content. So any past event that was bad in any way, you're supposed to write it down. And you write down who was involved, the effects for yourself and for others, both emotionally, psychologically, physically. Write down as many details as you can. And then you're supposed to explain connections between how that event has impacted you now in both your view of yourself, your view of others, and your view of God. So it can be a pretty scary thing to actually start writing down all of these events. And one of the first events that I wrote down, I was probably age 5 or 6. My dad was away on a business trip. I remember he was in Trinidad and Tobago. And I remember for some reason feeling like I really needed my dad. And so I can see myself, I'm on the balcony in the upper part of my house, and I'm asking my mom, where's Daddy? And she says, he's away on business. He's in Trinidad and Tobago. And I felt like I was just all alone in that time in which I needed my dad. And so I don't think I'd ever thought of this event again until seminary. And so I was invited to take this event after I wrote it down and bring it to the chapel, bring it to prayer. So I visualized myself back in this time in which I was, say, 5 years old, crying out for my dad, feeling all alone. And then just inviting Jesus into that event. And all of a sudden, I just had this deep sense that I wasn't alone at that time, that Jesus was there, that he was with me, that he felt my pain as a little child crying out for my dad. And what I realized is that this idea of my father as a provider for the family, successful in business, but often away on business trips, I projected that idea on God. I had this idea that God is a distant provider. He's not intimately involved in my life. He provides for everything I need, but he's not actively engaged in my daily life. He just provides it all, and he's just distant. And so I was invited at the seminary to bring this to prayer and to bring it to confession. So I had to bring this to confession to say, Jesus, I have this wound in my heart that I believe that you're a distant provider. That, yeah, you provide everything I need and you bless me abundantly, but you're like disengaged from my life. You're not actively involved. And it was a real experience of healing for myself, for both my relationship with Jesus, to know that he's always engaged in my life, but then it also provided me an opportunity to bring that experience back to my dad. So this is not the first time my dad's heard about this. And to relate this to my father and to say this is a real event that happened in my life. And it also brought about deeper reconciliation with my own father. So one of the real ways I've experienced the power of the resurrection to change my life is in these experiences of these past wounds and hurts, allowing Jesus' resurrection, the risen Lord, to go beyond the locked doors, to bring his peace, his healing, his reconciliation for both myself, through going to confession, through praying about it, but also with my father and all those who were involved in the event. And I'm not finished in any way. Like yesterday I went home and the Masters was on TV, and it's like it brings back all of these experiences. For so many years of my life, I wanted above all else to become a professional golfer. And so seeing the Masters on TV all of a sudden brings back all of these experiences of my past. And so I was praying through that this morning, like crying out to Jesus in a way of like, how badly I wanted to be a pro golfer, and it just didn't work out, but I have to trust Jesus. And so I wrote that this morning on like the top of my confession list, that the next time I go to confession, I'm going to bring that experience of like, yeah, I'm still on the process of healing, still in the process of really believing deep down, trusting that Jesus has my best intentions at heart, and that even though I'm not a professional golfer, I really believe deep down inside that God has blessed me abundantly more. So I'm still in the process of healing. And it's an invitation for all of us today to really realize that one of the ways that the power of the resurrection can change your life is by bringing healing to your past. This happens by praying through these events, and then bringing this to confession. And so today is Divine Mercy Sunday. And I don't think I've ever explained why I brought the painting of Divine Mercy and I put it in my confessional. So I took it out of the confessional, I put it beside me today. And so Divine Mercy Sunday, the whole message of Divine Mercy is captured perfectly in this image of Divine Mercy. And the reason why I put this Divine Mercy image in the confessional is because Jesus says to St. Faustina, tell the world that when a soul comes to confession, you're truly encountering me, Jesus. Jesus is hidden, he's hidden in the priest, and he uses the priest as his representative to pour out an abundance of his mercy and healing upon all souls that come to confession. And so I put the image of Divine Mercy in the confessional so that when you walk into the confessional, you realize it's not really me as a priest that you're encountering. It's Jesus. The risen Lord is using me as just his instrument to truly bring healing for you. And so you're invited when you go to confession, not just to name off the sins, but to bring a lot of those deeper things that are in need of healing from your past. And there's nothing that God cannot heal in confession. It's one of the beautiful signs of the power of the resurrection in your life is to receive healing from this. Jesus told St. Faustina that all of the sins and trouble of your past is but a drop compared to the ocean of divine mercy that can enter a soul. Imagine that. All the sins of your whole past, all the wounds and troubles of your past, Jesus says are but a drop compared to an ocean of divine mercy. Imagine yourself flying out on a helicopter in the middle of the ocean, one little drop into the ocean of divine mercy. That's what God wants to pour out abundantly upon souls. Jesus also says that the greatest miracles in the whole world take place in confession. He says it's even greater than the creation of the world. He says, were a soul to enter into confession in a state of mortal sin, it's like a corpse. It's like a zombie. The walking dead enters into confession. And he says the greatest miracles of all take place in that confessional, bringing a soul back to life that has the chance to live for eternity with God forever. And so on this Divine Mercy Sunday, one of the most beautiful ways that we can experience the power of God's divine mercy in our lives, to experience true healing from our past that Jesus so deeply desires for each one of us, is to find an opportunity to go to confession, not just to list off the sins, but to bring those past struggles, those past traumatic events, pour those out to Jesus, and trusting that he will work those miracles in our life today. Jesus, I trust in you.